my friends. I'm getting ready to do some music, so I thought I would get some reading in before um, my friend comes by and we can start working on some things together. Excuse me. Um, Lots going on. Family and stuff like that. Just keep praying for my brother John and my Aunt Elizabeth. If you would put some prayers in for her. She had a stroke. And so, yeah, if you would keep her in prayer. And my brother, too. He's going to have surgery on Monday on his leg. So, yeah. What else? Yeah, so we stopped at on page 211 of True Christianity, okay? And one of the things that's been sticking with me, I don't know about you guys, but especially when we're talking about, you know, love your neighbor as yourself, okay? So, but if your neighbor happens to be evil or is constantly, you know, in their heart doing evil and you're helping them, you're actually helping them do evil. You're not actually helping them do good. You know, and so I wonder how that, are you guys, you know, thinking the same thing? Because I was thinking the same thing. I was like, that doesn't, because if we put people in jail, we're doing it because, one, we want to protect our society and, you know, from any more harm, and hopefully that this will rehabilitate the person, although I think jails suck for that. You know, they're not rehabilitation centers whatsoever. You know, they're antiquated, old, you know, I mean, somebody needs to get in there, revamp it, the whole thing, the whole system. If we truly are putting people there to help them become better people, or we're, you know, from what my understanding is that people go in there to come out worse because they learn, you know, all the evil things that they can be doing when they get back out, you know, and you know, it's very rare that somebody comes out of there even better than they, you know, they went in. Although I must say that in my own family, some of my members did go and then they did come out better than they were. But it was for a short stint. It wasn't something, you know, it wasn't years and years and years. So, yeah. So anyway, I just don't know. I'm finding that one little. I'm thinking about it. Okay. All right. So maybe we go on. I can get it answered for myself as well. Okay, so deeds, nevertheless, inside them lies the belief that they deserve credit. This is perfectly obvious after death when people like this list the things that have done and demanded salvation as their reward. I'm not sure if I got cut off the last time because I was just reading on, so let me just go back up here a little bit. Because we're talking about, it is a common belief in the goodwill consists solely of giving to the poor, helping the needy, caring for the widows and orphans, making contributions to build, enhance, endow hospices, hospitals, hostels, orphanages, especially church buildings. Many of these actions, however, are not integral to the exercise of goodwill. They are the extraneous to it. People who consider goodwill to be good deeds of these kinds cannot help taking credit for them. Although people may claim aloud they do not want any credit for their good deeds, nevertheless, inside them lies the belief they deserve the credit. Okay, so again, it's selfish love. This is perfectly obvious after death when people like this list the things they have done, demanded salvation as their reward. They are then investigated to find out what origin their actions had and what quality their actions possessed as a result. Whatever origin the actions had, whether they came from arrogance or from hunger or fame, or from a wish to be seen as generous, or from a desire to win friends, or from some merely earthly tendency or from hypocrisy, they are judged on the basis of that origin, because the quality of the origin lies within the action. Genuine goodwill, however, emanates from people who have become steeped in it through doing work based on justice, judgments without the goal of being repaid, in accordance with the Lord's words, Luke 14:12, 13, and 14. People of genuine goodwill refer to the donations listed just above, not as goodwill itself, but as acts of kindness and also duties, although they are related to goodwill. As is generally recognized, there are people who do acts of kindness that seem to the world like the very picture of goodwill, with the result that these people believe they have performed acts of genuine goodwill. They look at their own acts of kindness the way many Catholics look at indulgences that have absolved them from their sin. They believe heaven ought to be granted to them since they are regenerated as a consequence, yet in fact they do not consider acts of adultery, hatred, revenge, fraud, or fleshly craving of whatever kind to be sinful. They indulge in such acts whenever they like. But in that case, their good actions are like painting of angels and devils at a party together, or like boxes made of lapis lazuli and have poisonous snakes inside of them. It's completely different if people do the same acts of kindness but abstain from the evils just listed, because these evils are the enemies of goodwill. Nevertheless, doing kindness is enriching in many ways, especially giving to the poor and to people who are begging. By acts like these, young men and women, male and female, servants, and simple people of all kinds are initiated into the exercise of goodwill. These actions are outward habits that help the giver absorb the benefit of goodwill. They are beginnings of goodwill. They are like fruit not yet ripened for people who afterward develop proper concepts of goodwill and faith. These habits become like fruit, fully ripe. People like this come to reward the things that they used to do from simplicity of heart, as things are now obliged to do. Nowadays, kindnesses like these are seen as central acts of goodwill that are referred to in the word as good works. The reason for this is that many times in the word, goodwill is characterized as giving to the poor, helping the needy, taking care of widows and orphans. Up until now, people have not known that the letter of the word mentions only things that are external and are, in fact, the outmost aspects of worship. People have not realized that these external things have meanings that are spiritual and integral. And on this last point, see the chapter above in Sacred Scripture, 193 to 209. These passages make it clear that mentions of the poor, needy, widows, and orphans in the word do not literally refer to such people. They refer to people who are spiritually poor, needy, widowed, or orphaned. For the poor, meaning people who have no concepts of goodness or truth. See Revelation Unveiled 209. For widows, meaning people who have separated from the truth and yet long for them there, and so on. I would like to read that Revelation Unveiled. People who are born compassionate yet do not make their earthly acts of compassion spiritual by doing them out of genuine goodwill tend to believe that goodwill is given to any poor person and helping any needy person without first finding out whether the poor or needy person is good or evil. They say that this is not necessary because God notices only the helpful gesture and act of mercy after death. However, people like this are identified and completely separated from people who have done prudent kindnesses related to goodwill. The people who have done kindnesses based on a blind idea of goodwill do just as many kindnesses for the evil as for the good. The evil use the kindness to do evil things and harm good people. In that case, the benefactors share the responsibility for harming good people. See, that's been staying with me since the last time I read. Doing an act of kindness for an evildoer is like giving bread to the devil. The devil will turn it into poison, and all bread that is in the hand of the devil is poison. If it is not, the devil will turn it into poison by diverting the act of kindness to an evil purpose. It is as if you handed your enemy a sword and the enemy killed somebody with it, as if you gave a shepherd's staff to a human wolf to bring the sheep into the pasture, yet the human wolf, staff in hand, drove the sheep away from the pasture to the wilderness and slaughtered them there, as if you gave leadership and control to a thief whose sole focus was keeping an eye out for things to steal. The thief would create rules and make decisions based primarily on the abundance and value of the loot. So, the first step towards goodwill is removing the evils. The second step is doing things that are useful to our neighbor. Among teaching on goodwill, the following point is primary. The first step towards goodwill is not to do evil to our neighbor. The second point is to do good to our neighbor. This is like a doorway to the teaching on goodwill. As people generally know, evil dwells in the will of every human being from birth, because all evil targets someone nearby or far away, including the wider community and country. It follows that hereditary evil is evil against our neighbor on every scale. On the basis of reason itself, we can see that the less we remove the evils that dwells in our will, the more the good we do is pregnant with that evil, because then evil exists inside the goodness like a kernel in a shell or the marrow in a bone. Therefore, although good things that someone does in the state appear to be good, they are nevertheless not good inside. They are like a shiny shell containing a nut that has been consumed by worms. They're like a white almond that has rottenness inside of it, and the rotten streaks that have crept up to the surface. Intending evil and doing good are two things that are intrinsically opposite to each other. Evil comes from hatred for our neighbor, and good comes from love of our neighbor. Or to put it another way, evil is the enemy to our neighbor, and goodness is a neighbor's friend. The two cannot exist in a single mind. That is, it cannot be evil in our inner self and goodness in our outer self. If there were, the goodness on the outside would be like a wound that has been superficially treated. Beneath which there lies the pus of an infection. We ourselves would then be like a tree whose roots are unsound, produces pieces of fruit that outwardly look tasty and beneficial, although inwardly they're rotten and useless. Our good deeds would also be like pieces of rejected slag, superficially polished and beautifully colored, which are offered for sale as precious stones. Briefly put, these good deeds would be like eggs of an owl mistaken for eggs of a dove. It's important to know that the good things people accomplish with the body come from the spirit or the inner self. The inner self is a spirit which lives after death. Therefore, when evil people cast away the body that formed their outer self, they are made up of nothing but their own evils. They enjoy the evils and steer away from goodness as a threat to the way they live. The Lord teaches in many passages that we cannot do good things that are intrinsically good before evil has been removed from us. Do people gather grapes from thorn bushes or figs from thistles? A rotten tree cannot produce good fruit. Matthew 7:16, 17, and 18. So woe to you, scribes and Pharisees! You clean the outside of the cup and plate, but the insides are full of plundering and self-indulgence. Blind Pharisee, first clean the inside of the cup and plate so that the outside might become clean as well. So basically, clean your spirit. Matthew 23, 25, and 26. And in Isaiah, wash yourselves, remove the evil from your actions, stop doing evil, learn to do what is good, seek good judgment. Then if your sins had been like scarlet, they will become as white as snow. If they had been red as crimson, they would be like wool. Isaiah 1:16, 17, and 18. This point can be illustrated further by analogies. Suppose someone keeps a leopard and a panther in an apartment, and as one feeds them, is able to live safely with them. No one else can visit unless their owner first removes these wild animals. Guests invited to the table of the king and queen would not forget to wash their faces and hands before